This morning, I want to talk about a variation on lying. When people have been traumatized, they may do this thing called dissociate when a crisis happens, when there's extreme turmoil and confusion in a particular situation. And when they come out of that dissociative state, and there's an entire range of what goes on within the human being. They can completely sever from reality or partially. They have to create some sort of explanation for what occurred. So say they dissociated in the midst of a crisis and they did some extreme behavior. What you'll see is this thing called confabulation. They will take some little time. They will come up with a story to explain why they did what they did, and it's their way of reasoning through it, but it typically has no basis in reality. So when we're thinking about lying or simply avoiding accountability for our actions, I just like to put on the table that there's a subcategory of lying that has to do with people who dissociate. It's a very complicated subject, but I just want to put it on the table because when we talk about compassion, compassion for ourselves and for others, I just want to make sure we don't leave anyone out. That's what happens when we sit in a meeting and we listen to people's stories, our understanding of other people, what's happened to them, how they function, how they respond to stress. It broadens. It just keeps getting bigger. With each person who comes to the table and shares their personal experience, we benefit by it because we're compelled to listen. So when someone lies, it's not that simple. Just like I gave the example about the individual, the young woman with an over-controlling father who wouldn't allow her to get her medication for her painful migraines, who engaged in lying. It's not that simple, ever. It's complicated. And there's just reasons why. And the way to bring someone out of it is to exercise compassion. All right, here we go. May 23rd. Sometimes the healthiest thing I can do for myself is to admit that I'm not perfect. I'm human. I make mistakes. But it isn't always easy to admit this to someone else, especially when my mistake affects them. Pretending that something never happened or that it doesn't matter or justifying the action seems so much more inviting to me. But there is a price to pay if I refuse to own up when I've been wrong. Guilt. For years, I dragged guilt behind me like a heavy duffel bag. Al-Anon offers me an alternative, a 10th step. I continue taking personal inventory, and when I am wrong, I promptly admit it. When I admit the error, I take responsibility for my actions. I free myself from the burden of an embarrassing secret, and I move closer to accepting my imperfection. It becomes much easier to love myself if I accept myself as I truly am, mistakes and all. Today's reminder. Today I will have the courage to look the truth in the face, admit my errors and my achievements, appreciate my growth, and make amends where I have done harm. Here's the quote. I care about truth not for truth's sake, but for my own. And the quote is from Samuel Butler. So there's one more thing I wanted to add to that for those of you who don't quite remember what happened. That the way out of that situation is to admit, I'm not sure I remember what happened. And come at it in that way. If that's the truth, is I'm not quite certain that happened. All right. So whatever's the truth is, when you speak that thing, that's what's going to set you free, because we speak our truth for our own sake. In every situation, that's what we do. And we don't hide the truth in attempt to control the outcome of what we've done. Blessings on your day.